Many couples carry heavy burdens into their marriages, often stemming from past experiences that have left scars. Scars that can include unresolved conflicts, poor communication skills, and a tendency toward selfishness. Imagine that. Any of us being selfish, right? So, when these issues are brought into a marriage, they can create a cycle of frustration and disappointment, and they can drive a wedge between you and your spouse, leading to resentment and hurt feelings. But today I have a special treat. Pastor Dennis Watson from Harps Crossing Baptist Church right here in Fayetteville, Georgia. And he is joining me, and we're going to discuss how God's word can help couples overcome these burdens by leaning into better communication, loving one another more deeply, and submitting to each other as God designed. We're going to explore practical ways to improve communication and strengthen your marriage. So stay with me. We may be just what you're looking for today. Welcome to the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Connie Durham. If you've ever felt like your marriage is more of a roller coaster ride than a romantic getaway, you're not alone. We all have our ups and downs, sometimes unintentionally hurting each other's feelings or missing the mark on what our spouse truly needs from us. Life gets busy, and it's easy to focus on irritations and failures instead of celebrating the love that brought you together in the first place. But fear not. I'm here to help you explore practical tools and heartfelt encouragement and rediscover what you love most about your spouse. Get ready to lean into each other's strengths and build something beautiful together. Not just survive, but thrive. I'll see you inside. All right. So I have to start with this, Pastor Dennis, because you and I recorded this a few weeks ago and we had some issues and it didn't get done. So I thank you for coming back and doing this with me because, hey, all we got is time, right?
That's it. That's it. That's what we got is time.
Well, I have to say you chose communication and submit for your topic. And for me, I have to say sometimes I don't really like the word submit. What do you have to say about that?
Well, in many years of doing weddings and marriage counseling, that's one of the toughest topics that usually I watch the young lady or the woman get very aggravated about that word. It's not a favorite word in the uh, performing weddings genre. So I like to explain it, this way. Because if you look in Ephesians 5, that right before he comes to talking about the relationship between the husband and the wife, where he says, wives, submit to your husbands, he says in the church, we're supposed to submit to one another. And my understanding with that is that in order for the church to really be healthy, we need to be submitting to one another. Here's what I think. Here's what I feel. Here's how I understand this. And then there's an open exchange that occurs. So really submission is just sharing exactly or thinking, being able to express what one person believes and sharing it with someone else. So if you bring that into the context of marriage, it appears that Paul is admonishing the wives to submit to their husbands. Now, my wife has never had any trouble submitting like I just defined, because she likes to tell me what she thinks, what she feels, what she thinks I should do, and sometimes even how I should feel. How I should feel about things, and so it helped me to come to that understanding of submission. So it's a very significant word, and it gives an opportunity for a wife, in my opinion, to express herself instead of closing up or clamming up, but instead she should be free to speak what she feels and what she thinks.
And I would have to say I relate to your wife because I'm sure my husband would be shaking his head. Yeah, my wife does that too. But the good thing about it is when somebody is expressing how they feel and, what they think needs to happen, then you know what they're thinking at least. They're not just keeping it all to themselves. And a big part of that is how we say things, right? It's how we present our side of things that makes a big difference, I think, whenever we're discussing things in our relationship, right?
Exactly. And I think that, you're I'm sure you're this way. I come home at the end of the day and there's questions for me. And those questions are, how's your day? And the typical answer for most men is, it was good. What did you do? Well, I went to work. What did you do while you were at work? And that's when that 100 questions begins to enter in, because if she's told me before, if you would answer my questions in advance before I ask them, then I wouldn't have to ask you all those questions. Or if you wouldn't just give me the one word answer, then I wouldn't have to keep asking questions. In fact, it just happened just the other day. I have this problem with being focused. And I came in the door from a meeting and I needed to get downstairs to my home office and work on some things. And so we had a quick conversation that I thought was fine because it lasted about 3 minutes. So I took off downstairs, come back up a little bit later, and I could tell she was not very pleased with me. And it was because that my focus led me to ignore her instead of sit down with her and have a conversation about what was going on. And when you read that context of that submission, it says that the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. And when I think of that, the church submits to Christ. In other words, we tell him our request, we tell him what we need, we tell him how we feel, we tell him how we think. And so I came to learn that really what he's saying is the husband is the head, but how does the head make decisions? How can the head make decisions unless it has information? And we know that there are five senses that send communications to the head so the head can make wise decisions. And if the head is paying attention to what is being submitted, then the head can make a whole lot better decisions than if he's not paying attention. So I think that's the picture of submission. Is I'm sharing this with you. I'm saying, here's what I feel, here's what I think, and then it gives me the opportunity to respond. And it also helps me understand because I know that when we got married, I did not understand. I did not understand women. You know,
Nobody does, I think.
no, no,
We're hard.
that's
We're
that's
hard
that's
people,
what
yeah.
that's why I'm not sure about Peter when he said, "Husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way." I'm thinking, what was he thinking there when he's saying that? So listening to what she has to say when she submits or when she comes to tell me something. It's not always a matter of what are you going to do about it. Quite often, it's I need that information, because if I don't have that information, I'm not getting the other part of what God has given me in my marriage. So I need to hear what she has to say, and not only I need to hear what she has to say, but I think it's my responsibility and the responsibility of the husband to have leave the door open for the wife to say whatever she wants and whatever she feels and whatever she thinks. God made most of us men pretty tough, so we should be able to take whatever it is, unless they have a tendency to be like me and start defending myself against what she's saying. So, and that's and I think that's a typical thing, because when she's submitting to me, sometimes I think she's pointing out my shortcomings, and so I need to fight back and defend myself. But no, that's not the case, because she asks me regularly, "Why are you defending yourself?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. It's just a habit I've got."
And I teach on the personality styles, and that goes deeper. Like, there are 4 different personality styles, and we all interact with people differently, and that really comes up in marriage. But honestly, Dennis, whenever we talk about submitting, I also think about the fact that it's okay. There's certain things I submit to my husband or I give in. I'm thankful that he's bigger and he's stronger than me and he takes care of a lot of stuff that I do not want to take care of. And that's like a partnership in marriage, really.
Sure, and that whole partnership aspect is in our household. We had a lot of different sayings, and one of them is we help each other and we share. In other words, if there's something that needs to be done, don't say, "Well, somebody needs to do that." If there's something that needs to be done, go do it. go take care of it. If the dishwasher needs to be unloaded, the dishwasher needs to be loaded, whatever needs to be done, just take care of it. I don't think that it's just the woman's job. We share that together and we cooperate together in that.
Woo woo, I agree with that. Not just the woman's job. It's like being helpful at times and helping fill in, that kind of thing. Sometimes we're tired, or sometimes we're bummed, or sometimes we need a little extra boost. I think that as women, we're a little more temperamental than men typically. Typically. So, all right. So, Dennis, let me ask you. Tell us a little bit about you as we go into the. We're going to be doing 7 different questions today, but as we go into that, tell us a little bit about you, your ministry, and how long you've been a minister, and how long you've been married. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. First, how long have we been married? We've been married for 51 years. It'll be 52 in November. And we went to kindergarten together.
Oh.
Have a when we turned 70 a few years ago, our kids gave us this big birthday party, and they took our kindergarten picture. In our kindergarten picture, I'm sitting on the floor in front of Sheila, and she's sitting behind me. And so it's a perfect picture. And they had it made life size, so we've got that now in our game room as a great picture and a reminder. There was a lady at our church at our home the other day, and she asked, "How did you and Sheila meet?" I said, "I'll be right back." And I went and brought that life size picture up there for her to see. Hey, we met in kindergarten, and so we've known each other pretty much all of our lives, and we are blessed in that. We have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and we're loving this time in our life with our kids. And with our grandchildren, that's been a real treat. They all live within 30 minutes of us, so we can go to all their activities, ball games, and shows, and everything else. And we knock ourselves out to do that because that's what my wife's parents did for us when our kids had something going on. I've been privileged to be the pastor of Harps Crossing Baptist Church now for 44 years. And that just shows how good God is, because he knows that I am totally undeserving, incapable, but by His grace and His goodness, He's made that possible, and it's been a real blessing and a real treat. All my children, all of our children were saved through the ministry of Harps Crossing Baptist Church. In addition to all of our grandchildren, just recently I was privileged to baptize our 6-year-old, our youngest grandson, and that was a real treat. So what a blessing that was.
So perfect. I love that. And talk about a home church. That is your home church. And I have to say, I've heard you preach, and you're pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, you are. Okay, so let's start in. So, what are the most common communication barriers you see in marriages today?
Well, I think I've mentioned one, and that is focus. When I wake up in the morning and get out of the bed, Sheila's usually not up then, but when she is, the most important thing for us to do is for me to put my arms around her and hug her. But like I said, sometimes when I get up in the morning, my mind is already going on all the things that I need to do. So I think probably one of the hindrances is take time out, even if it's just a few minutes, to sit down and say, let's talk for just a few minutes and renew. And same thing at the end of the day. If we haven't seen each other or had an opportunity to talk all day, there needs to be some time. And she's helped me with that. But again, I think most men have a tendency to be extremely focused. And sometimes it's easy to just kind of walk on by and miss that opportunity. But I'm thankful that she has been faithful to submit that to me over and over again. That, hey, remember me? Yeah. So I think that's an important part.
You know what, Dennis? That is like if you go back to the love languages, and I should be able to recite those with you, but simply looking up the love languages online and then sitting down to talk about that and see what is most important to your spouse. And for your wife, that's most important, is that hug and that little personal attention in the morning that says you care, right? But looking up the love languages, because it's different. Sometimes it's spending time together, sometimes it's touch. Like I said, I should be able to recite those off. But that is a type of communication and understanding one another, because what's important to the wife might not be important to the husband, and vice versa.
gifts, little tangible gifts. That's one of those love languages. And I don't understand that. That means, when she leaves me a note, it's sweet. But years ago, I had come to understand that she needed flowers from time to time. And so, for just all of a sudden, the Lord had just spoken in my heart: send her flowers, send her flowers, send her flowers. So it seems like for several weeks, at least twice a week, I would send her flowers, and she was just absolutely blown away at that. And in that process, this has been probably 35 years ago. The Lord was working in her life. She took a Master Life course and was asked to write her testimony, and she discovered she couldn't write her testimony, and it turned out she wasn't saved. Through even the opportunity of me showing her that love, it had an impact in her life, and she came to know the Lord personally. Of course, folks in the church freaked out. Did you hear the preacher's wife got saved?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. Well, no, it's not. Wait a minute. Now, surely it's a good thing. But a few years later, she asked me, "How did you do that?" I said, and this is where it just kind of changes from the man to the woman kind of thing. I said, "Well, I have a note on the corner of my desk. Send Sheila flowers." It destroyed her. And we still haven't resolved that. She said, "You mean you had to write yourself a note?" And I said, "Well, how was I going to know to call the florist and ask them to send flowers? Am I just supposed to beam it up to, to the florist?" I said, I had to remind myself, but that just doesn't mean as much then if you had to remind yourself to do it. And so here we are now, about 40 years later, and we still haven't resolved that one. I'm not sure if we'll
You have your systems. That was your system.
sure you've got to have a way to make sure you know you want to do those things that are important. And if you write yourself a note, it doesn't seem like a problem to me.
Well, flowers are a great communication because they say, "I care," and that kind of thing. And so I have a flower story too from way yonder 35 years ago. And, whenever you have little kids and you don't have a lot of money and you're always just making budget, but you are making budget. We're blessed to make budget. But, flowers didn't used to be at the grocery store where you could get them like half the price of the florist, right? And so when my husband decided to send me flower, or he brought me flowers, so he just got some flowers from the florist and he brought them to me. I'm like, "Oh, that's so pretty. Oh, thank you." It was like flowers. And then about 4 days later, he brought some more flowers. I think he did like 3 sets of flowers over a couple of weeks. And, they live. I'm like, I don't need flowers. The other ones are still alive. And so, but here's the problem, Dennis. Then he didn't give me flowers for years. He said, "Well, that's not working." Hello, he did 3, and I was thinking how much money we were spending on flowers. Yeah, we all have these
Well, that's
different
probably
things, don't we? Different criterias, different things we're thinking about.
well, that's probably a good reminder for me because I haven't done it recently. So, any other husband that's watching this can say, "Oh gosh, I need to do that too."
Yeah, so different ways of communication and the way that we reason things are different from our spouse. And there's a saying that talks about how we think and how we see things is how we read into other people's reactions. Like, however they act, we read that upon who we are. And so sometimes we just simply read things wrong. And of course, for me, I don't know if I just said, "Honey, we don't need to spend that much on flowers." And he just took that as a loss instead of, yeah. And so it was years and years. And then finally, I was like, "You never send me flowers anymore." I was about to sing that song, "You don't send me flowers anymore." Anyway, it started happening at the grocery store. And once in a while, he does bring me flowers. Flowers are
It does
always,
make it a whole lot more convenient, that's for sure, and less expensive.
and they're less expensive now, so I'm cool with that. I don't wanna spend that much, like, $50 on flowers, not into that. But some people are, but I'm not. So, all right, so what are some other communication breakdowns that you found whenever you're, doing, marriage counseling and that kinda thing?
I think that you've sort of referred to it. It's how what is the other person hearing? When I say this, what are they hearing? We run into this all the time. I can sense there's something going on with Sheila, and I'll ask her a question. And with tone is a big deal. in how we communicate, how we say things, what we say, how we say things, the um, the occasion, whether there's a touch during the process that just says I'm communicating to you, and I'm not trying to be critical. But I think again, making sure that you're thinking when I say this, what is she going to hear? And then and maybe even ask, okay, I said that to you. What did you hear me say? And just clarify, did she hear really what I was saying? And the last few days has been very hectic with a lot of things going on with the church and family, and had some deaths in the church. And so it's been really tense. And so we would find ourselves asking each other the same question: Are you okay? Are you upset with me? Are you mad, or what's going on? And I think it's just the sense of the tension that's going on there. And I think we have to take that into consideration when we're seeking to communicate. And again, asking the question not only of our spouse but of ourselves. What When I say this, what is she hearing? Or when I say this, what is he hearing? And maybe even just take some time to clarify and make sure what's being said is being heard.
Well, I've been married 46 years, and what I'm hearing a lot as I hear you talk, it's like your relationship is, no relationship exactly the same, but there's so much similarities between your marriage and mine, and asking each other, okay, or really being overly sensitive or overly, paying attention. To be honest, Dennis, whenever we were younger, I bet you could say the same thing, like, 46 years I've been married, so, like, 30 years ago even, I can guarantee you we did not pay as much attention to, "Are you upset with me? Is everything okay?" Those questions you ask back and forth. I think because we were raising kids, running children around, and then back in those days, we're just very enthralled with raising a family, and I think sometimes that's where couples, um get too far apart from each other because they are so busy that they're not paying good attention to each other or taking that time out for each other. Did you guys ever date or take time out just for one another back in the day?
Definitely, we had a day set aside that would be our date night, and because with like you said, with children, you had to have that opportunity to just go out and do something together, be alone together, and so we made sure that was built in. In addition to that, when the kids got a little bit older, we would take like a few days and go run away. For some time away together, so we're not in the normal routine of things with the family or things with the church. But even now, uh, at times that worked better than at other times, simply because of the age of our children or the things that were going on with the church. In fact, with right now with 8 grandchildren playing baseball, basketball, softball, everything else, we find ourselves going to all those things. And she looked at me the other day and said, we haven't gotten away together in a while. And I thought, yeah, you're right. There's probably going to be another little time before we get that opportunity. But I think early on we set a date night. And I think that, I mean, sometimes it was just, we would go out to eat. On occasions, we would go to a movie when her parents were very sick, and she was the main caregiver for her family. She would run over to the house, take care of them, and then I would swing by and pick her up. We'd go to the little theater that was in Fayetteville, and I would drop her off at the curb. I said, just buy tickets for whatever. I'd go park the car, and we'd go and sit down and watch a movie. And that was just, you had to rush it and try to get it in there as best you could, just so we'd have some time alone together that was focused on us. I think that's an absolute necessity.
There's a book called His Needs, Her Needs, and that's what it talks about. It goes farther. It's not the love languages, but it is 10 different needs that people have, and that he has these certain ones and she has these. And it also goes upon personality, where different people need different things. And that time alone, I have to say, whenever we were, say when we were dating, no, we didn't have kids then. But back whenever our kids were small, I would hardly part with my kids, and so, we didn't leave them very much at all, and then if we did leave them, we felt empty-handed, like, not knowing what to do with ourselves, if we went off. So, I think that's something that I would really, uh, give to younger people who are raising their family, is to purposely take time, and set aside time, whether it is just a night, sometimes that's all you can get is an evening, or a few days, and go and do something. It takes a little bit to um, decompress from family life, when you go away. But you'll get your zing on, and you can have a good time. Also, in that book, it talks about every couple needs 15 hours a week together. And that ain't just sleeping, so that is like, whether it's, sitting on the pew at church. Well, you don't get to do that at church because you're up in the front.
We never come to church together.
Yeah, my husband's in ministry too, so that yeah, we've got that. But we do get to sit together on the pew because he's not the preacher. But watching TV or having that conversation at dinner, sometimes we'll hang out after dinner since we don't have kids at home anymore, and maybe have 30, 45 minutes of conversation about what all went on for the day. And that really helps keep you in touch with each other. But 15 hours, all different kind of things, it's like 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. But making sure that it also says that you should have the most fun with your spouse. So now my husband loves Georgia football. And that's the one thing we have music in common. But the one thing I really have not ever really gotten into is, the football stuff. But they say that you should have the most fun together, so we go camping and, we found other things that we enjoy or do together. So spending time together is really important.
It is, and it's you grab it up as best you can. Sometimes when we're going to the ball games, and one of our the 3 of our grandchildren live in Pike County. Well, actually 5 of our grandchildren live in Pike County, and so that ride down there is usually a 30 minutes and 30 minutes. So we have that time to talk on there. So right there, that helps a lot. Just to have those moments that we can be in the car and drive and talk. And sometimes I'm not the best communicator in the car. I think I may have mentioned this last time. A friend of mine in the church, we made some trips to West Virginia when we had a church that we had started up in West Virginia, and we could drive all the way to West Virginia and not say a word. And we had a great time. But Sheila's idea would be to talk the whole way up there, but then she would say, "Well, I feel like I have to leave the conversation." Well, yeah, pretty much that's the case. That's the
Oh,
case. Is she if she can lead it and get it going, then usually I can join in. Uh, and you mentioned needs a moment ago, and we've had this discussion many times. That she I want her to feel the need to communicate her needs, but at the same time, that I have to be aware that sometimes I'll receive that as criticism rather than I'm trying to help our marriage be stronger. I have tried to become proficient at understanding and trying to meet her needs, which you'd have to have her on here to ask her how I do with that.
well, and honestly, as a pastor, you counsel other people and all the things that you do, you're a problem solver.
Sure.
And so you automatically want to make sure everything's taken care of and stay ahead of the game, right?
Oh, exactly. And when I'm sitting here, counseling a couple, and sometimes I want to say, "Can I pick up my phone and call Sheila and help let her help me with this one?" So you can hear how her side of that is, because basically we all have similar struggles within our marriages, and I don't think there are too many, unless it's a major crisis, they're not too far apart. The kind of struggles that we face, and it's usually just fighting for time together, and fighting for the opportunity to share and talk and to communicate. And uh, I told her years ago when she used to talk about my failure to communicate. This was not a very good answer. I said, "I communicate for a living." That wasn't a good that wasn't a good answer. But when I talk all day, when I get home, I don't want to talk. But I have been able to overcome that part of my uh, marriage weakness of not communicating as well as I need to. But
I can imagine that because I'm a major talker and I love to be out with people and talking and having conversation. And then I'm tired. So I understand. I understand that. Okay. So through the years, the counseling and things that you've done, what are some, a handful of warning signs that you have seen that, because a lot of times the fact is people are just unaware and they're not paying any attention.
Well, quite often, and this happens both ways. Uh, when a couple comes in and you can tell they've really not communicated about what they're fixing to talk about as much as they needed to. And he or she, and usually it's he, says, I didn't know it was that bad. Okay. I did not know.
Hmm.
And my question is, well, why didn't you know? Either you weren't listening or she wasn't communicating to share with you, here's what's going on with me. But I think trying to talk about what struggles there might be, and you know, you can do uh, a large degree of taking care of your marriage by asking those questions. You know, how could you know, that question? I think it was Gary Smalley suggested that you ask your wife, what how would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate our marriage? And if she said it was a 5, then the question was supposed to be, well, what would it take to make it a 10? Because he would say that the wife generally has a marriage manual built inside. And so if she says our marriage is a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, then she probably knows what it would take to make it a 10. And I've discovered that that's pretty much true. That's not to say she's always right, but generally with that discernment that quite often that God gives to our wives, she knows what would make it better, at least from her perspective. And like I said, generally she's right.
And not everybody has discernment. I was just having lunch with a girlfriend, and we were talking about discernment because it's something that we both have, not just for marriage, but in different situations. So everybody doesn't have that gift of discernment. But you know what? There is, I have some videos called Honey, Listen Up. I wonder what that's about. Honey, listen up. It's like a 5-day challenge that I did. I have it on YouTube on my channel and then also on my podcast. But you know, a lot of times on getting your spouse to listen, it is first listening yourself. You know, listening yourself, asking some questions and getting that conversation started. But anyways, so when we need our spouse or as a spouse, when we are in a conversation, the important thing is to show we're listening, and that is to show our eyes, and sometimes to repeat back, you know, what it was they said, not every time, because now that gets robotic, right? But to repeat back, and that makes sure you understand what they're saying. Because I have found that in these latter stages of my marriage, sometimes like he's not listening as good as he did. Sorry, honey, but not listening as good as he did. I think because he, um, maybe even he's around more talkers. And so, you know, we all got our limits and, I don't know, but or he's thinking too far ahead and not listening to what I'm saying, and so he thinks he knows what I was gonna say. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, yeah. The way our TV room is established, our kitchen is on one side and the TV room is here, and there's a love seat that's here that we generally sit in, and unfortunately, when Sheila starts talking to me and I'm heading out of the room,
I do that a little.
that's not a good thing. And so usually she has to catch me and say, I don't like you standing behind me when I'm talking to you. So I say, oh goodness, I know, I know. So I'll come in there and I sit down in a chair, and usually with not the best attitude in the world, and then we can talk. And that helps because again, I am prone to be on a mission and about to go do something. So coming in there and sitting down, and so that we can be eye to eye, which is I think that's key, is to be eye to eye. And I don't say that as an expert. I say that as a learner in the process of making sure I'm looking at my wife when she's talking to me
Mhm.
instead of standing behind her. And she'll love to hear that.
My husband's gonna love this podcast. He's gonna laugh while he listens to you, Dennis. He's gonna laugh while he listens. All right. So anything else that really stands out as far as warning signs? Because you know, people are not paying attention.
Again, I think it's just if you don't decide to be together in an enjoyable setting. In other words, let's go out to eat somewhere or let's go do something that we enjoy. then all of a sudden you find yourself becoming roommates. We live in the same house. Well, that doesn't make for a marriage. It just means that you're roommates and you live in the same house. And if there's not a way to make sure we're keeping up with communicating, talking, sharing, casting some vision, and again, one of the things that Sheila likes for us to talk about is where will we be a year from now? What's the future look like? What are our goals and dreams and visions? And she's big on talking about that. If not, I think again we become roommates, and I've seen a lot of situations where the husband and wife they do live in the same house, but they're not friends. And in order to be a married couple, there needs to be this friendship that is being developed and nurtured and carried on. You have to have time together. You can say, well, we're married because we have a marriage license and we have a ring on our finger, but that doesn't make the marriage work. What makes the marriage work is spending time together and sharing your heart and your dreams and visions. And I'll tell you, since having eight grandchildren is as a blessing to us and to our marriage because it gives us this teamwork thing that we get to do together in nurturing them, loving on them, going to their events, and I think that's a big part of our marriage and our family and our home.
Well, I had one wonderful person. I love people that I had coached on some challenges in their marriage, and um, too often, Dennis, people absolutely wait until it's too late. I mean, like, it was already too late a year ago, and they just keep putting it off and putting it off, and they wait just way too long. And this couple, there's some simple things. Once we got through some things, there were some simple things that caused division and unforgiveness and bitterness. And they were still living cordially. So they weren't even being mean to each other. They were living cordially, but the love was gone because they didn't deal with the challenges and ask the questions and talk and communicate, like we've been talking about. And so I just want to say that to couples that are listening and are people who are listening. It's like if there's challenges, there's just too many places to find good answers these days. Church community, pastors, coaches, counselors. All counselors are not the same. You want a Christian counselor because they've got your good, um, your marriage, in view for that. But yeah, so I was kind of brokenhearted because it was a simple thing that we uncovered, and they just she waited too long. And so I just encourage people, don't wait. Don't let things get so bad. It's harder to get things fixed when they get too bad, right? With
Right, and
yeah.
I think I agree with you in that sometimes, you don't have to wait till there's trouble. Just and I've had some couples that I've married them, and a few years later, they come back in, "Hey, we just wanted to come back in and just have a refresher."
A tune-up.
And I think that's a great opportunity to just talk about things, and how could your marriage be better? How could you be, stronger? How could you be a better husband? How could you be a better wife? And again, marriage is to be celebrated. I love my marriage. I love my wife. I love the opportunity that we have this impact on each other's life. She impacts my life. I impact her life. And that's a real blessing that comes from a relationship rather than being roommates.
That's Jeff and I. We are good together, and he takes care of certain things. I take care of certain things, and it works wonderfully. James 1:5 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. God he's not going to find fault. He's going to find a way, to heal things and to help you out on that. So the third question that I have is, how can couples create a safe space for open and honest communication without fear of judgment or conflict? Because sometimes people are in situations where the other spouse is really closed up, really has trouble. And honestly, Dennis, I have found most of the time that is because of past experiences, past troubles, and they don't know how to be open. But how can couples create a safe space for open and honest communication?
Um, I trust is huge, and um, I have to be able to trust Sheila with what she's saying to me, and she needs to trust me and what I'm saying to her. And I remember telling her a long time ago, um, I don't think I trust you, and that kind of floored her. I said, no, it's not like that. It's I'm not. I don't always feel like I trust you in what you're saying to me. And so what I need to make sure I'm doing is I'm taking it anything and everything you say to me as that's being said to encourage me to make me a better person and to make our marriage a better place and a stronger thing. So I think trusting that you're not saying this to attack me, you're not saying this to hurt me, you're saying this for the benefit of our marriage and of our home. And I think sometimes we start out in a conversation that's already just covered up with distrust that somebody's feeling attacked when there's no attack intended. It's just an honest conversation that says, "Hey, listen, anything and everything I ever say to you will be for the good of our marriage and for your good." And so, I think trust is a big issue. I also think you mentioned this at the very beginning before we even started. We bring baggage into our marriages, and this is something that's been on my mind a whole lot lately, and that is the understanding of redemption. Uh, God redeemed us before He ever created anything. He had already provided the redemption through Christ before the foundation of the world, and that means that every sin that I would commit was already in the future, hadn't even been committed yet, and He had already covered it. And so to appropriate God's redemption of my past, that whatever hurts that are there, he's already covered them. He's already redeemed me. He's already purchased them for his good and my good and his glory. Then I can realize, hey, I'm healed. I'm no longer hurt. That's been redeemed. God has brought it back. And I think we need to make sure that we live in a mode of redemption, that God has forgiven me. He's redeemed me. I don't have to be ashamed or disappointed because He has totally forgiven that. And then we're clean and clear when we communicate and talk with each other without having to drag the past back up.
Well, but a lot of times, the person with that baggage is not the one looking for help. It's usually their spouse, right? And so remembering the power, the weapon of prayer, you know, to
Exactly.
pray. And if you have a good friend or another good friend, asking them to pray for you, because there's power in prayer. And because if somebody really is having trouble, it's hard sometimes to deal with all that, and then to keep your own cup full, because honestly, if you live with somebody who is really having a lot of trouble because they brought baggage into the marriage, then it like sucks the energy out of you. Yeah,
It
so
does. And you talk to people who are on that difficult side of that where the energy is being sucked out. And they need prayer. They need support. They need a support group. They need the women need women in their lives. The men need men in their lives that they can feed each other, encourage each other, pray for each other, and stand with each other because we don't need to go through those struggles by ourselves. As a man, I need men, and my wife needs women in her life that will talk to her, listen to her, and share with her, and pray for her. I think to me, there's a point at which we can do a lot of talking and a lot of sharing and a lot of encouraging, a lot of counseling. But bottom line is it's prayerful intervention where God intercedes in a situation in marriage that seems like it's hopeless, and there are no hopeless situations with God.
and I was talking to somebody the other day, and also remembering that that person that you're sharing your heart with and telling them whatever, for that support, it making sure that it's somebody who has the best interest of both of you, in that. In fact, I think I was doing a podcast with my son-in-law, and he was saying that they had went to, uh, Windshape Chick-fil-A puts that on. It's Wind Shape, and it was a marriage retreat. In fact, they brought back this book, and I wanted to share this because you could see all my markers, but all my markers in it, and the book is called Empowered to Love. It's from Focus on the Family, and, you can see all my notes and all my stuff is like because this book, if people would get it and read it, um this couple right here, these people have really researched and put things together. It was excellent. So my son-in-law was the one who actually shared that with me, making sure that whoever you're sharing your heart and your troubles with has both of you in mind, like you and your wife, not just like, oh, they did that. I can't
Mhm.
believe they
Yeah.
did that, right? But looking at both sides.
And that's important for families to keep in mind too. You don't take a side in a marriage conflict. You take the side of the marriage, and you're battling for both of them together because you want to see the marriage healed. You're not fighting for the husband or fighting for the wife. You're fighting for the couple together.
And that's called the Holy Spirit within, guiding us in the right direction, just not the direction sometimes that we typically might think because we want to protect the person. But God's got a bigger plan in that. So, what are some immediate next steps that you would say? So, if couples have been having some challenges, what would be something you think might improve? It might even be some scriptures or a lesson on something that would help people to improve their communication skills.
I think we've mentioned this. I think becoming connected to a church, um, and a lot of for people, there are a lot of folks that say, "Well, I attend from time to time." Attending is, and I think we've done a great injustice to helping people understand church. That when they say, "Well, we have weekend attenders," it's not attenders that we need. We need people who are going to connect to the church and realize that I need other people and other people need me. And when you join and you have a couple that's in a Sunday school class and they share their lives together, they share their families together, they're growing and learning together. You're fighting a battle that can more easily be done because you're looking at each other and say, "Oh gosh, y'all have the same problem that we have. We'll pray for you." So I think connecting to a church is a huge next step, and beyond that, again, seeking godly counsel. Godly counsel is so essential. We're told in Scripture that we there is wisdom in many counselors instead of trying to go through this and figure it out alone. Again, utilizing family when you know that family is going to be supportive of the marriage, not the wife or not the husband, but supportive of the marriage. Because I've shared this so many times through the years that when a marriage is in trouble, which is better, to kill it or to save it? And it's far better to save a marriage than it is to kill it. And there's long term impact of saving a marriage and just devastation when you kill it. And I hate that, but it happens.
Totally. Can you think of a success story through the years where somebody came in and, you know, everything seemed like it was against them, and then whenever you went through and you started helping them see, because a lot of times a mediator, a pastor, a counselor, a mediator helps you suddenly see past just what you can see. As people, we see our side, we see what's going on for us instead of thinking about how it looks for our spouse. And so that mediator helps you see. 'Cause can you think of a story maybe where it turned around?
There are several. And typically, once again, there was a couple in the church years ago where there had been what we refer to as a platonic relationship that had interfered. There was not unfaithfulness in regard of a physical unfaithfulness, but there was a platonic that were talking to another person. Intervention and sharing with them, uh, there was repentance. The man repented, and it was amazing just to see how quickly their marriage was healed and had positive. I'm talking, 35 years ago, and how the marriage was healed. and put back together. And now here we are many years later, and they've got grandkids, and are once again uh, happily married. But it just seemed like it happened so quickly. It wasn't with months and months and months of counseling. It was just a matter of seeking help, acknowledging there was a problem, and then moving forward. And so many times you see the same thing happen in second marriages where there are children involved, particularly grown children, and sometimes that's a battle. Uh, but yet, when with intervention, with prayer, with counseling, guidance, connecting to a church where both the husband and the wife are involved, there's it's almost like a seedbed place for healing and restoration. So yeah, I've seen so many times where where it happened so quickly that I was rejoicing and praising the Lord that God can heal quickly in a marriage situation that was seemingly impossible.
For those of us who've been in church mostly all of our lives and we've grown up with biblical principles and heard God's word, and it's just a part of us, there's so many people in the world where they don't know anything about that. They only know what their parents taught them, what they witnessed, growing up. And there's a lot of hurt and pain in the world today. So, what are some biblical principles do you think that really do help us build great relationships?
Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Um, for me, that is huge. Um, but the problem with that is I've seen this happen in so many marriages where the husband had no example of that. And so he's coming into a marriage and he's being instructed to love his wife as Christ loved the church, but he has no idea how to do that. And I think that what I've shared with, especially with couples that are uh, getting married when they're 18, 19, or 20 years old, to let the man know particularly that God has called you to do something that it's impossible for you to do, and that is to love your wife as Christ loved the church. I said, you can't do that. It's impossible for you to do that. And I base it on, Jesus said, apart from me, you can do nothing. And to love someone, as he's talking about with loving your wife as Christ loved the church, it requires a man who has broken and humbled before the Lord, that is recognizing, God, I can't do this. I need you. I am desperate for you to show me how. And I remember praying that early on in my own marriage, is God, teach me how, show me how. That capacity is not inside of me. It only comes from you. Please enable me to love my wife as Christ loved the church, and to honor her in such a way. And I was looking up this hymn today, this song, that Bill Glory Gaither recorded, and it was, when he was on the cross, I was on his mind. And I think there's nothing that a wife likes to enjoy, knowing and understanding that today, when my husband was away or at work, he was thinking about me. And sometimes that's a phone call, sometimes it is the flowers, sometimes it's a little gift just to say, I just want to let you know I'm thinking about you.
That's
So I think that's a big key, because the husband is the initiator and the wife is more a responder. And sometimes the husband is not initiating what the wife needs, and so the wife is not responding with really good stuff. And I've got a theory that makes men very mad at me, and that is, if you call your wife one who nags, it's probably your fault. Because
maybe.
if you well if you're seeking to love her as Christ loved the church, and you're seeking to meet her needs, then I think you're going to have a wife who's thriving. years and years and years ago. I remember hearing somebody say this, that if you show me a woman who is beautiful before the age of 25, she can take credit for it. You show me one that's beautiful afterwards, her husband can take credit for it. And I thought,
That's a lot
oh,
of
and then I
credit.
heard, I heard an elderly woman say the exact same thing. And I thought, okay, good. I can quote it now because I've heard a woman say it that when a man loves his wife as like Christ loved the church, then that again, that context of Ephesians 5, then she becomes a radiant bride. When the church is alive with the love of God in them, the church is alive and is wearing that white gown with this incredible beauty. And I think a husband has the opportunity to create beauty in his wife by loving her in the way that Christ taught us to love her. And we can't do it apart from Christ.
I love that. Well, as we talk about people's needs, we talked about it a few times through here. Um, I have a free gift at theextraordinarymarriage.com, and it is called The Chemistry of Lasting Love, because I took from the book His Needs, Her Needs, the 10 needs that people have, and I help you figure out what those were just by going through some of the podcasts and going through a guide that is in there. It also has some date nights that you haven't thought of, because there's about 50 different ideas. We think about the typical going to the movies. We watch movies at home, right? But we think about the typical things. Some people are physical and they like to ride bikes or hike, and some don't. And so sometimes it's a hard time finding the things that you actually have in common. And so there's 50 ideas in there. But I guarantee you, like, it's if you're having trouble in your marriage, it is like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. I was cleaning out some closets and some stuff. I lived in my house about 40 years now, and I started trying to clean stuff out, and I'm like, oh, first of all, I don't really enjoy cleaning out closets and stuff that much, because it's really not much fun, and I like to enjoy life. But I did find that if I started doing 30 minutes a day, one item, one place, 4 or 5 times a week, 30 minutes a day, that, bite sized pieces, and it would feel so good. And so sometimes our marriage is the same way. And we need to, we're feeling like nobody can help us. Like we're just like two strangers passing in the night and nobody can help us. But truly, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time. And so the chemistry of lasting love is just a guide. You could go through it. It's simple. And then get your spouse, make conversation. Sometimes we just don't even know how to make conversation because we're feeling like we don't have anything in common anymore. So I really encourage people to get that. It is a free gift on The Extraordinary Marriage. And so, Dennis, thank you so much for doing this. It was a lot of fun. It's as I listen to you, I can't help but compare you and your wife with my husband Jeff and I. And but it's been good, and I'm thankful, and I took that for granted because I up until so many years ago, I didn't even realize people had problems in marriage. And so I'm so thankful to have been oblivious, because I was oblivious because we didn't have those troubles. But I want good for people. I believe that if we give it a little personal growth, we latch into what the Bible holds for us on how to live our lives. And there again, that's eating an elephant bite by bite if you're not accustomed or don't know anything about the Bible. But, God created the world. And so he's got it all in his hands. He's got it going on. And so it's up to us to tap into that. He has it for us, and we could take it or leave it because it's choice, isn't it?
Indeed, it is.
It is choice. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." Dennis, do you have a last word for us today?
Yes, I think it was Glenn Campbell recorded that song years ago, "Try a Little Kindness." I think quite often in marriage, if we would just think about what can I do to show kindness to my spouse? We had another little saying in our house that says, "There's never a reason to be unkind." But by the same token, there's a whole lot of reasons to show kindness that can change a person's life.
I love that. I agree with that. And I think that's an awesome place to start. Have kindness, treat one another kindly. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. It has been a blessing. And the second time we're trusting is perfect, right?
That was terrible last time. It didn't record for anybody who's just
But
tuning
we
in.
made it. It
Yeah,
was a
we made
practice.
it. So
Thank you,
thank
Connie.
you. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast with me, Connie Durham. Remember, every marriage has its bumps in the road, but with the right tools and encouragement, you can turn those bumps into stepping stones. Focus less on frustrations and more on what you love about each other. Grow together, laugh together, and love forever. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Join me next time as we keep exploring how you can build the kind of marriage that feels extraordinary. Until then, keep showing up, keep listening, and keep loving. You've got this.